I very much want to move things along and wrap up this wireframing process and delve into the fun stuff, the design side. So essentially taking our wireframe and designing it out into a complete layout. So as you can see here, what I've done, if I just pan down here a little bit, is I've kind of jumped ahead. I've thrown in some additional objects here. I have some additional text objects, current news and events. I have a sidebar there with some I guess you could say sub boxes inside the sidebar there, and also a footer as well. So what I'm going to do here, and again, I apologize for moving along here pretty quickly, but again, I want to move things along here for us. What I'll do is I'll show you the dimensions for the objects that I've created here, and you can duplicate these out on your side if, again, you are indeed following along here. So give me a moment here. I'm just going to turn off my guides temporarily just by hitting Control or Command semicolon. And I'll zoom in here just a little bit so we can see what we have. I'll start you off here with the sidebar. So I'll just grab this sidebar rectangle, this sidebar object, and just using the transform panel, there's the dimensions that I've used. Again, if you want to use these on your side as well. So 306 by 695 is the dimensions for that sidebar object. And then these three objects that are contained inside the sidebar. We have a calendar of events. We have a box there for our newsletter, signing up for the newsletter, and a photo gallery. And these guys are all the same dimensions. So I'll just grab the first one here. And there it is, 275 by 195. And again, they're all the same, 275 by 195, all the way down there. Okay? Very lovely. And then below that, of course, we have the footer. I'll grab this fella for you, and he is 960 by 280. Again, if you wish to duplicate that out for yourself. Okay, now I'm just going to zoom out here a little bit more. You may, at this point, want to pause things up and throw down the sidebar boxes, and the footer as well. I'm just going to motor right along here, though. The next thing that I want to do is you'll notice that my footer does not extend to the bottom of my artboard. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to adjust the height of my artboard. If you recall, way back when I set the height of my artboard to be 2,000 pixels. I really didn't know how much vertical space I needed. So I just threw in 2,000, which gave us more than enough space. So I now want to tuck the height of that artboard up to meet the bottom of the footer. So I'm going to do that by grabbing this fella right here over inside the toolbox, the artboard tool. Go ahead and grab that guy. And then I'll just grab this bottom anchor handle here and pull that guy up just to meet the bottom of the footer area, something like that, right? Now, if you wanted to, if you knew the precise dimensions that you wanted to use, you can always use your dimension options that you have running along the options bar across the top there. Okay, good enough for us, though. I'm going to go back to my black arrow tool. And last but not least, to finish up our layout, again, I'm really hoping to finish up this wireframing process in this lesson and then move things along into the design stage. What I want to do inside this current news and events area is, if you'll recall from the finished layout, we had some blog posts, right? So we had a little graphic and we had a title and we had a little bit of text there as well. That's what I want to wireframe out here with you. And we're going to do this super fast. So give me a moment here. I'm just going to zoom in by holding down Control spacebar or Command spacebar and clicking and dragging to zoom in. I'm going to turn my guides back on by hitting Control or Command semicolon. There's the guides back. I'm going to hit the T key on my keyboard to flip over to the type tool, and I'll click over towards the left here somewhere, maybe right in there. And you can type in title or maybe post title or, something like that. Hopefully that's all good. And I'll switch back over to my black arrow tool, and maybe what I'll do is I'll just shrink this guy down just a little bit, maybe something like that. Maybe nudge him over so he's up against that left guide there. Something like that I think is just fine. Great. I'll grab my rectangle tool out of the toolbox. I know that I want my rectangle to be exactly 110 pixels by 110 pixels. That's the final size or dimensions for the object that I want to create. So I could click and drag this fella out and then use the transform panel. But I want to show you one other quick trick that we can use here. I can just single click with my rectangle tool and I get the rectangle dialog box appearing on screen here. And I can just go 110 tab 110. Hit enter, and there we go. There's our object. Once again, I'll hit the D key on my keyboard to flip back to the default fill and stroke colors, back to the black arrow tool, and I'll just go ahead and position this guy up. Maybe something like that. Maybe I'll just nudge that guy down a little bit. Again, just arrow keys on the keyboard. Okay, very good. Excellent. The last thing that we want to do is we want to throw in some text here for our post, some dummy text, some sample text. So what I've done here is I've actually pulled up what's referred to as lorem ipsum, which is simply placeholder text or sample text. We don't have actual real text. Maybe the client hasn't provided real text for us just yet. So give me a moment. I'm just going to flip over to my browser. And what I did here inside Google, as you can see, is I did a quick search for lorem ipsum. And then I clicked on the very first search result, which brought me to this page. So if you want to follow along, go ahead and do the same thing. Fire up your browser, hop onto Google, do a search for lorem ipsum, and click on one of the results there. And if you don't know what lorem ipsum is, you can read up on it here. It's simply dummy text that's used in printing and typesetting. I'm going to scroll down a little bit, and we have the standard lorem ipsum passage used since the 1500s. So I'm going to grab this text here, essentially just like that, and copy it. Command-C or Control-C. Or if you want, you can use some of the other examples that they have here. That's just fine, though. I'm going to flip back over to Illustrator. Okay. Now this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my type tool. I've got that lorem ipsum copied, right? And this time I'm going to click and drag out a rectangle, maybe something like that. Again, I'm not being too terribly precise, something like this. And then I'll paste Control or Command-V, something like this, right? Paste that lorem ipsum into the text container that I just created. Select it all, Command or Control-A. And then up on your options bar, click on Character. And let's reduce down the size here. I'm going to reduce this down to just 12 point, something like that. Okay. Now, unfortunately, my lesson is running a little bit long on me here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause things up right now. And what we'll do is we'll have to split this into 2 lessons. So I'll finish up the wireframing in the next lesson. So just sit tight.